So for lesson 4, we're going to cover the DOM. And if you go into the key concepts, the overview at the top gives you a little perspective of how the DOM kind of fits in the big picture. It's basically part of the browser object model. And then we go into more specifics on the DOM, which you can read through. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We get into how to find and manipulate HTML elements. There are a couple videos that you can watch that explain all of this to you. And then we get into traversing the DOM. And again, I think this is fairly self-explanatory. We have to use specific terminology: parent, child, first child, last child. And this is actually referring to the HTML hierarchy. So that's what you have to keep in mind when you are using the terminology. And there's quite a few examples here. For the DOM manipulation using nodes, I have quite a few very simple examples and outline what the code is doing by line. You are going to have to do some of this manipulation in the lab assignment. And so for many of these examples, there is a video that actually walks you through how everything works. And quite a few of these same examples are linked into the lab assignment. So if you would prefer a video, you can go and watch the video that's in that lab assignment. And let's see. So in addition to adding, changing, removing content using DOM properties, you can actually style elements, and we've done that a little bit. We did it back in the 180 class. We also did it in lesson 2 using the style property. And you can manipulate attributes that are inside your HTML elements. So you can create attributes, you can set attributes, you can modify the attributes. And this section explains how to do all of that. And then that brings me down to this last little section, which is kind of important because your exam does require that you differentiate between these different properties: text content, inner text, and inner HTML. And they're all different ways of retrieving and updating text. But when you use them is different, and how they interact with your elements is a little bit different. And so I basically outline what each one does, and then I'm giving you example. And I've got the code down here, but if you click the buttons, you will see a very distinct difference between text content and inner text, and also inner HTML. Text content and inner text are very similar, but you can see that text content is actually displaying things that are hidden by CSS, and inner text does not. Okay, and neither one of them is including the HTML in here, and inner HTML does, or at least it's bringing in the li element. Okay, it's assuming it's bullets instead of numbers because it's targeting these. Okay, but at least it is trying to keep that HTML intact. Okay, so this kind of illustrates what the differences are. This shows you how to use them. And this also illustrates what the differences are. So I do recommend that you kind of look through here, especially take a look at the examples. And anything that I thought you might have trouble understanding, I did go line by line and explain what it does. So hopefully that clarifies things for you. And once you get through reading the chapter and you get done going through this, you will be ready to do your programming assignment. And I did do videos for each one of these sections. Your first little task is, after you create the folders, of course, is going to be to create a little animated page, and you are going to animate a unicycle. Okay? And this video kind of goes through the code in the example, and then you're going to be basically doing the same thing using unicycle graphics instead of a push pin. Then you are going to work with collections. I do give you an example that is really pretty much identical to what you're going to be doing. And there is a YouTube that explains all the code. And then you are going to be manipulating elements or nodes. And these are links to different examples that were in the lecture demo. And this YouTube video does go through and explain what all the code does. That same explanation is written out in the lecture. Okay, so you're going to go through this, create the pages, link them into your assignment page, and when you're done, you're going to go into the programming Dropbox and enter done. If there is anything that you are fuzzy on, and you know, the DOM does take a while to learn and to absorb. So it may be several weeks before you are feeling comfortable with it. But if there's anything that you are confused about, feel free to post a question to our little form, and I will answer it either by typing up an answer, providing a link, or if I feel like you need an example, I will type up an example and throw a link to that as well. Feel free to ask questions. I did include a little DOM reference here. Okay, this is a chapter from a book. And so if you wanted to read through that, that also provides additional information. Sometimes it's helpful to see the same information presented a couple different ways. And if you have any problems or questions with your assignments for this week, make sure you transfer them to the web and that you email me so I can go take a look.